every day you're driving, so you know exactly how to react to every single thing. So it can, intuition works perfectly. Similarly, in medical sciences, anesthetists get their feedback within minutes or worst case a few hours. So therefore, your ability to develop intuition and decision, and therefore decide based on intuition, can be very, very decision making can be a lot better. However, in chemotherapy, for example, where the feedback loop is fairly slow.
In which therapy, sorry?
Chemotherapy, long gestation, chemotherapy.
Chemo.
Where, chemotherapy where the feedback loop is fairly, it's slow. I mean, you don't get to know whether it worked or not worked in a certain situation until a few, months or years. So therefore, in those cases where there is slow feedback, intuitive decision making may not be very rewarding. This is his analysis. So what do you say? I mean, is there a good way to develop intuition? Because in the end, it is about feedback loop, right?
Well, I cannot challenge a Nobel Prize winner. So I don't pretend to. He was talking of it in a particular way, but I am talking of it in a different way. Whether they are both related, I am not in a position to. I am talking of it experientially, what I have been.
Right.
And here's my take: that whether the feedback loop is frequent or not, when you are left with no choice but to use your intuition, because you've exhausted, then you use it, right? And when you use that intuition, your brain is automatically indulging in two activities, or should indulge in two activities. I call them immersion and reflection. Immersion means you're deeply involved with that subject. You can't just visit it for that morning and take it. You must be deeply involved with that. And the second thing about immersion is that you are looking at the object itself. I'm going to illustrate this in a moment through an example. Reflection means you're not focused on the object, you're looking at the context of the object, the surroundings. So let me take a real example, otherwise it sounds a bit ethereal.
Yeah.
When I was young, I was born and raised in Calcutta. I had to learn many languages. Hindi was my first language, Bengali was being spoken, English and Hindi, and Tamil at home. So, many Indians are like that, I'm not special. And I was very incensed that a member of parliament called Purushottam Das Tandon had pressurized the then Nehru government to make Hindi the compulsory national language and the basis for all entrance exams, IAS and all that. And I must have been 14, 15, 16. IAS was certainly within my choice set. And I found what a severe disadvantage I would be if I had to write a whole paper in Hindi. And you'll also remember that at that time, Tamil Nadu or Madras, as it was called, went up in flames, all that we know. Now, if I recreate artificially what must have been going through Mr. Nehru's mind, I wasn't privy to it and I have not read it anywhere either. When he focused on the object, should Hindi be national language? It is there as a policy. He said, yes, it should be there. But perhaps I can alleviate the situation by giving 15 years time. So he said it will be a national language for 15 years. Until then, it will be, concurrent. Then somebody else looked at the context. Why is the Tamil fellow protesting against Hindi? What looked absolutely self-evident to Purushottam Das Tandon looked absolutely ludicrous to Kamraj, And they found that these two don't speak to each other, and that's the problem. So how can you make a Tamil fellow take interest? Not by running Dakshin Bharatiya Prachar Sabha, which is what was going on at that time. Right. We were all sent to Dakshin Bharatiya Prachar Sabha to learn Hindi. But some magical angels arrived from heaven. One was called Raj Kapoor, one was called Dilip Kumar, one was called Devanand, one was called Ashok Kumar. They spoke in Hindi, they made love to lovely little girls, they ran around trees, they sang songs which were endearing. It doesn't matter which language you are in. Bollywood became the primary propagator for Hindi.
Right.
Even Urdu, I would go to the extent of saying,
Right.
And one day, about 20 years ago, I was in Tirupurapundi, maybe 10 years ago, and Tirupurapundi, people can't even pronounce that name north in the Vidyas. And those guys were watching Kaun Banega Crorepati. And I said, bloody hell, I told him in Tamil, I said, do you understand a word of what's going on? And he put on his South Indian Tamil drawl and said, sir, when 1 crore is involved, how does it matter which language it is? That's what I mean by the content, the reflection. And very often when you are faced with, even in some of the current situations, I don't pretend to have a prescription for COVID or Swachh Bharat or the various activities that are going on in the national domain. If you think of the object and the context, you start to get insights which you otherwise may not have had.
Sure.
That's my take.
Sure.
I love telling the story of this Hindi because it looks so obvious to most Hindi-speaking people that it will be able to learn Hindi. But you go and look at the guys who are living in Bangalore and find out how many of them have learned Kannada. You get a very, very poor score.
Right. Sure. So we'll take a 5-second break again and come back. And when we come back, we'll take some audio.